Hi everybody, I'm Susan Mulvihill. It's time for the August garden tour. Yay! Welcome back to our garden in Spokane, Washington, where the hardiness zone ranges from 5B to 6A. Today you're going to see the good, the bad, and the ugly because this has been a really tough growing season. So let's get started. I'm still not growing anything in this first bed because it is a very shady spot for most of the day. But in the next bed, these plants with the big leaves are parsnips and they are doing awesome. And then the rest are carrots. There's 3 different varieties growing in here and everything is doing really well. Now this is a zucchini bed. The variety is gray. And as you can see, the leaves are scorched from the heat we've been getting, and so the plants don't look that great. I have been harvesting quite a few zucchinis, and there are a few developing right now, but they are not what I would call beautiful plants this year. It's just so hot, so dry, and they are really struggling. So you can see some young ones growing down here. And every now and then I have ones that just fall off and I'm thinking they didn't get pollinated. And it certainly seems like there are fewer pollinators around, which is very worrisome. So this craziness here is our potato bed. And if you've been following me along this summer, you know that Bill and I are having a potato growing competition. So this part of the bed is my part, and I'm growing potatoes the traditional way, where you plant the seed potatoes in soil a few inches deep, and as the plants grow, you keep filling in more soil around them. The back part is where Bill is growing seed potatoes only in straw. So rather than planting them in soil, he's planted them in straw, and then he keeps filling more straw in around them as the plants grow. And the idea is that this would be easier to harvest. So we did just pick a few potatoes for a picnic we're going to, and I'm making a potato salad, so I wanted to show you how the potatoes look. The variety is Russian banana. So here's one of the potatoes. It looks pretty good. The one thing I did notice is that on a couple of the ones we picked, there's some green on the skin, and that means those potatoes were exposed to sunlight, which is not good. And they were picked on Bill's side that's using the straw. So that might be a shortcoming of that method, but maybe it's just these 2 here. Okay, so this bed is pretty idle right now. We do have some Italian flatleaf parsley growing here and a few onions. I need to weed the rest of the bed. And then I have started some seedlings of lettuce and spinach down in our basement, and I can plant them in here in about 2 weeks. I'm waiting for the temperatures to stop being so hot. In this next bed, yes, we have more flatleaf parsley. I don't know why we're growing so much, but hey, we can grow it. And then what's in the rest of the bed is beets. I do have a few Swiss chard plants over here, and that's pretty much it. So it's just kind of growing along here. Next up is the broccoli bed, and this is a crop that has really struggled this year. Usually I harvest a big first crop, which I have done, and then it starts producing huge side heads. These plants have produced almost nothing since that first harvest. That is very unusual. I'm blaming it on the weather. I've had it covered with shade cloth to help. That doesn't seem to make a difference. And I'm just, while I'm in here, removing some low-hanging leaves. But yeah, this is so frustrating. This is usually one of my best crops. I'm hoping as the weather cools down, maybe it'll perk up a bit. But I do see a few small heads on a couple of the plants, so that's encouraging. I'm just going to cover it back up with the agricultural insect netting, which is how I keep cabbage butterflies off the plants. as well as aphids. At least the plants are healthy. They just don't like the heat. I should also mention that I did use this shade cloth for quite a while, with it being up a few inches from the bottom of the side so that it had good airflow. And that was to give them a little bit of a break from the intensity of the sun, but maybe it didn't like being covered that much. Okay, now we're in the second row of raised beds in our garden, and we're going to start with the hoop house and what's growing inside. So it's currently covered by a heavy-duty shade cloth, technically a frost cloth, and that is to cut down on a bit of the intensity of the heat that occurs in it this time of year. So this is where Bill is growing peppers. He loves to grow peppers. He loves eating peppers. And this bed is primarily hot peppers. Now, ordinarily, the plants would be quite a bit larger. And the problem is, as I've mentioned previously, we have a couple of pine trees that are to the east of us, and this area gets shaded a little bit more than usual. So these plants are smaller than they normally would be. They usually would be just these huge plants just covered with peppers, but he's still going to get a decent harvest off of them, and he also has them growing elsewhere in the garden. And let me show you the other bed in here, because those plants are doing pretty well. The plants in this bed are primarily sweet peppers, with the exception of a couple hot peppers here and there. But let me give you a close-up on some of the sweet peppers because they look fabulous. There are some large ones hiding behind here. Look at this red one and the green one still. You can also see a few in here and here. And look at these whoppers and this one. In addition to enjoying growing peppers, Bill really likes growing Pandorino grape tomatoes because they are so flavorful and they are fantastic in fresh salsa. Yum. If you saw my recent video on succession planting, I think you're going to find this really interesting. In the video, I was talking about how you can plan ahead and know when a bed is going to be empty, start plants ahead of time to go in their place. And so that's exactly what we did. This used to be the pea bed, and now we're growing sweet corn in it. But the interesting thing is, in that succession planting video, I discussed about how pea plants and other types of legumes fix nitrogen in their roots. And so when I was preparing this bed to put corn in, when the peas were done, I actually snipped off the pea plants at the soil surface rather than disturbing their roots, which have all that lovely nitrogen in them. Well, it turns out it paid off, because this bed of corn is doing better than the other bed of corn I planted where we were growing garlic. And I'll show you those in a few minutes. But it's just kind of cool to see that, yes, these plants are doing great, and in a few weeks we'll be harvesting corn from them. Now, right next to that bed of corn is the original bed of corn that we planted much earlier than the succession crop. And you might think that they are really in bad shape, but we've already harvested all of the ears, and we turned off the water to the bed because there's no point in watering it if nothing's growing in it. So that's why there's all of this dead foliage on it. But we got a great harvest from this bed, and you know, we love sweet corn, so I'm very excited we still have 2 beds of corn coming. Next up is what is primarily a summer squash bed. So in it I'm growing Zephyr zucchini, which is what this is here. I've got some that are coming on here, a few over from there. The main thing that you'll notice about this bed, and I'll show it to you more closely, is the scorch that has been bothering the poor leaves. That really makes it hard for them to conduct photosynthesis, of course. So this is what leaf scorch looks like. And this, yeah, really frustrating. It's amazing how some leaves are doing okay. It's always hard to figure that sort of thing out. Next up is the pumpkin bed. It's New England pie pumpkin, which I always enjoy growing every year. And they're doing sort of okay, but you can see a lot of leaf scorch on here as well. Oh, what a year. Now, speaking of what a year, ordinarily our pole beans are fabulous. And I have been harvesting a lot of beans, nothing near what I normally harvest though. And you can see it's just spindly growth and yeah, really frustrating. So all of this lushness is celery plants. It could be maybe they're hogging a bit of the water, even though I have drip lines down along the base of where the pole beans are. I don't know, but I'm thinking about harvesting a bunch, chopping it up and freezing it, because you can put them in soups and stews later, and see if that maybe helps a little bit. So this is primarily the Monte Gusto yellow pole beans, and then on the back side, which is growing a bit better, is the Vortex beans that I love so much. So it could be a water issue. It could be the pine trees that I was talking about that we probably are going to have cut down. I hate to even say that out loud because we know of the importance of trees, but this is the vegetable garden and it is really starting to impact how things grow, such as the peppers and certainly the pole beans. In the number of years that I have been growing pole beans, this is the worst they have ever done. So that might be a winter project, and not by us. We're going to hire a certified arborist just to save ourselves. And just so you can see the pine trees that I'm referring to, here we go. Yeah, they're pretty tall. Next up are my Supremo Determinant tomatoes, which are doing great, and a lot of them are turning color now. So the thing that I really like about determinants is that they ripen pretty much at the same time, so that if you're doing a canning project, you've got everything you need. And also they're more petite. So this is as tall as they're going to grow. I have grown them before. They might have been maybe a little bit taller, but not much. And yet look at all of the tomatoes on the vines. Wow. So this is a fabulous tomato. It's more of like a saucing tomato, so it has less juice in it and more pulp. And that's what you want. So this is the last bed of corn that we're growing. And these were planted the same time as the ones that I showed you that went into the pea bed and are doing so well. You can see these are shorter. Hopefully they'll catch up soon. The other thing I notice is that the leaves are a little bit less green. So very interesting to see the difference. I've been trying to figure out how I could film it so you could see both beds at the same time. Let's see what I can do. It's a little tricky considering where they are. Okay, here's the corn that is growing in what used to be the pea bed. And then I'm just going to pan to the left here. And if you look past the tomatoes, you can see the other bed of corn. A little hard to compare, but that gives you an idea. Okay, so this is the squash arbor, and if you saw my video last week, you know that I talked about a problem I've noticed on some of the squash vines. And the problem seems to be overwatering, believe it or not. You know, it's been so hot and dry, so it's an easy mistake to make by going the opposite direction with more water. But anyway, overall the plants are doing fairly well. And I'll just give you a close-up so you can see the type of problem we've got. But I really went through a process trying to determine what is the problem, and the answer came back: too much water. On this side of the arbor, we're growing autumn frost winter squash, which I am crazy about. It is so good roasted in the oven. And it's hard for you to see what's going on in here, but there's two here, one here, one behind the leaves. There's two here, one here, one here. So the productivity is good, but you can see there's a lot of dead and droopy looking leaves. I'm also growing mini-me cucumbers in here, and these are ready to harvest. They have been fabulous. On this side of the arbor, I'm growing burpees, butterbush, butternut squash. I do have maybe half a dozen squash developing. This is where I first saw the problem with a whole bunch of wilting leaves and dead leaves. And I evaluated all the different things it could be. Is it an insect? Is it a disease? And what I determined based on the soil moisture is that it was too much water. Yikes. You know, we always think about how things will droop because they're not getting enough water, but if you go to the other extreme, bad things happen. At the very end of the third row in the garden, we have 5 pots of different kinds of veggies growing in them, and I wanted to show you how those are doing. The short answer is great. First up are some jalapeno peppers. You can see they are just all over the plants, so that is very good news. I've got 4 pots of tomatoes here. This one is Chef's Choice Orange, which is a fabulous slicing tomato that I've been growing for years and love it. I noticed this one's got a nose. I'll have to read what causes that. And then this is Supremo tomatoes, so the same variety as what I showed you earlier for making sauce, ketchup, and salsa. And this last pot has more Chef's Choice Orange tomatoes in it. As a matter of fact, I'm spying a tomato in the middle of the plant that can be part of my lunch. Yum. I didn't want to forget to show you how the leeks are coming along. And as you can see, they're looking a little dry, so I need to be augmenting the water they're getting and hope they perk up a bit. But they should be doing really well. They've got nice long stems down in the soil that are going to be lovely and white. And last but not least is my sunflower bed. This is an area of the garden that we really don't plant things in anymore because it's very dry, courtesy of the tree roots that have come into the beds, and it doesn't get as much sun as the main part of the garden. So I thought, well, rather than leave this bed completely empty, I'm going to plant a whole bunch of sunflower seeds and see what I get. And they're doing great. They could be maybe a little more robust, but I'm giving them credit because they are growing under trying circumstances. If you're wondering about who this guy is, this is Wile E. Coyote, meant to be a decoy to keep birds out of our plants. And it worked for about 2 weeks, and then he just became our mascot. Well, I hope you enjoyed the tour of our garden. And like I've been saying, it's been a really tough growing season, but I'm being thankful for what we have, so that's good. Thanks so much for watching today, everybody. Happy gardening.